Well, welcome back to the third roundtable discussion session on the casino. In this section, we're going to talk about transportation improvements, transportation in general. Seated to my left is Frank Stringy from the City Department of Planning. Is that correct?
And Community Development.
And Community Development. I'm sorry, Frank. I should know better. It's been many, many years. And of course, sitting next to Frank is Chip Tuttle, who we had on the previous session. And next to Chip is Dan Murphy from CDM Smith, Traffic Engineering Group, for lack of a better word. Yeah.
Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, and welcome. One of the things we want to talk about at the very beginning here is traffic. There's been a number of discussions about how much traffic will be coming into the Suffolk Downs Casino area when it opens. And then all of these things are things that we'll be doing to mitigate that impact. But let's talk about what you're expecting for traffic and where it's going to come from.
Sure. You want me to?
Yeah, why don't you go ahead.
Thanks, Ed. We started looking at traffic, transportation, road and infrastructure improvements back in 2008. And we hired VHB, our own traffic consultants. They did a couple of studies in 2008 and 2010. Revere hired CDM Smith, and the City of Boston hired Stantec too. So we've had 3 sets of traffic consultants look through our plans and look through our projections. A facility of the type that we're proposing, $1 billion resort casino, will attract about 10 to 11,000 cars on an average weekday, okay? And then it goes up on the weekends. And I think sometimes people, they hear that number and they say, oh my God, what are we going to do with another 10 or 11,000 cars on the road? And it's important people understand 2 things: where the traffic's coming from, okay? About 70% of it we think will come from the 2 tunnels, from the Ted Williams Tunnel and from the Callahan Tunnel, into towards up 1A, to the front door of our facility. And the other 30% is diffused in and around coming down Route 1, coming down 1A, coming west on Route 16. So that's about another 3,000 to 4,000 cars per day in Revere. And again, people say, oh, what are we going to do if we have that many cars? Well, they're spread out over a 24-hour period. That's the other thing that people should remember about a gaming resort, is that there's not a lot of visitation during morning rush hour. People aren't getting in their cars at 7:30 in the morning to come to a gaming facility. So we developed plans based on the worst traffic conditions. Friday at 5 o'clock. And then we took our visitation and layered that over Friday at 5 o'clock, Friday from 5 to 6. And all of the improvements we've designed and the improvements that we're going to talk about as part of this program are designed to meet the worst conditions with another 20-year anticipation of traffic growth on top of that.
So, Frank, do you want to add anything to that?
No, just to put things in perspective.
Yes.
Given Route 1A, Route 16, and Route 60, which all provide or merge into the site, traffic will come through those main roads. Right now, about 180,000 vehicles per day pass through those roads in Revere. So they're heavily used roadways for regional traffic and local traffic. Mm-hmm. And as Chip said, traffic generated by the casino will be sporadic. It will be off-peak hours, not during rush hours. So we expect very minimal impact on those roadways. However, the intersection improvements that we have in mind are going to improve traffic conditions for our local residents who have to conflict with regional traffic to get from, say, Beachmont to Broadway, mm-hmm. or from North Revere to Broadway, and vice versa. So you're going to see quite a bit of improvements citywide on a number of key intersections, and that should make life a little bit easier for our Revere residents. Mm-hmm.
So not only are you going to be putting things in to mitigate the impact of the additional traffic from the casino, but it's not going to solve all the problems that exist within the city of Revere and surrounding area, but it's going to solve some of them.
It's going to go a long way, yes.
Yep.
Yes, it will.
Dan, did you want to add anything to that?
Just to point out that CDM Smith, on behalf of Revere, and Stantec for the City of Boston, reviewed the traffic study that the proponent put together through VHB, their consultant.
Mm-hmm.
And we reviewed their trip projections, their traffic analysis, and found it to be consistent with accepted practices. And you know, it's a good study. And beyond that, a lot of the roads around the project site, Mass DOT or DCR will speak into, and they'll be reviewing it as well.
Before we get into some of these other mitigations, I think let's hit the major one first. I think in everybody's mind that's probably the major one, the 1A flyover, which is going to bring traffic from the Callahan Tunnel into the property.
So the basic premise we started all of our transportation discussions with was, how do we keep casino visitation? How do we keep people who want to come to the resort, to come to the facility, on the major roadways and off of neighborhood roads, right? We don't want to encourage people to try to take back doors, right? We don't want to encourage people to go through the neighborhood roads. So the most effective way to do that, as we looked at the visitation, with 70% of the auto traffic coming through the two tunnels, was to try to make sure that through traffic on 1A, the traffic heading up 1A north was able to get through the logjam at Boardman Street and over that logjam.
There's a logjam.
Yeah, and up to our front door and up beyond into Bell Circle and into Revere and wherever else people are going. And so that's why we have a $45 million traffic plan, and that's private investment. That's us as the developer. About $25 million of that is for the flyover in Revere, and then there's about $10 million for the flyover at Boardman Street. There's about $10 million for East Boston intersection improvements and about $10 million for Revere intersection improvements, and some additional studying as well on what we can do in the future. But that's the centerpiece of the proposal. The easiest way to explain that is it eliminates the need for the state trooper who's there every afternoon at the corner of Boardman Street and McCullen Highway overriding the signal. And in addition to the flyover, we are planning to widen 1A from the main entrance to Suffolk Downs down toward where the Courtyard Marriott is in East Boston, so that we're putting more traffic through the intersections in the morning and at the different parts of day. So it's widening 1A and building a flyover northbound to get to break the logjam at Boardman Street, to reduce wait times at that intersection.
So now, in looking at some of the other ones, and the next major one that we have here is the intersection between Route 1 and Route 16, and to kind of help put people, that's the Revere Beach Parkway over by the Parkway Plaza, Chelsea area. I'm trying to remember the restaurant that used to be there, but
Plaza Garibaldi.
Yeah, Plaza Garibaldi. So right in that area, the infamous U-turn where you come off of Route 1, you go to those lights, you make that U-turn to come back towards Revere.
Right.
Yep. Talk about what you're going to be doing there.
Yeah, well, that is a very key element of the transportation improvements on the Revere and Chelsea side, especially Revere, because creating that connection between Route 1 and Route 16 will provide a diversion for traffic, which cuts through the city of Revere, through 1A, Route 60, and they have to go through Bell Circle, Brown Circle, Copeland Circle, Squire Road signals. And by eliminating that element of traffic, we would reduce traffic flow coming through the city for regional traffic, and it'll make it a lot easier for our local traffic to navigate through the city system. So this has been a long-standing plan that the city has been looking at with the state. Going back to the year 2000, the Lower North Shore Transportation Study done by the Central Transportation Planning staff from the Mass Highway Department looked at this connection. And the improvements that they looked at are mirrored in VHB's proposal and has been supported by the city. What will entail is creating a connection from Route 16 eastbound to Route 1 northbound, which doesn't exist now.
Okay.
That connection, you can only get there by making that U-turn at Webster
Plaza
Street.
Garibaldi is.
Yes. So what there will be a signal right in front of the Plaza Garibaldi for a left-hand turning movement onto Route 1.
Okay.
There'll probably be a 300 to 400 left-hand turning lane there, so you'll be able to get in that left lane and wait for the phasing of that signal, which will be phased with another signal on Route 16, to go, and you'll be able to jump right on the ramp up to Route 1 North.
So you don't have to go up to that U-turn anymore to come back
No
to
more
Route 1
U-turns
North.
if you're going north.
Yep.
And vice versa, in the other direction, if you're coming down Route 1 South and you want to head on 16 and head east,
Yep.
you have to navigate that U-turn and make a dangerous weave to get into that left-hand lane. What will happen now is that ramp coming off of Route 1 South will be expanded to create 4 lanes. 2 lanes to go right on Route 16 and 2 lanes to go left onto Route 16 heading east. There will be a signal there.
Okay.
So you'll be coming off right off of Route 1 South and be able to jump right on 16 East, which will take you right into the airport or the casino.
Yep.
It's important to note that there is a ramp there now for Route 16 to connect to Route 1 South,
Yep.
heading into Boston. There's a
Yep.
loop. That loop will be retained, so you will not have to go through 2 signals to get through
To get
up
onto the
onto
bridge,
the ramp
if you
onto the
will.
bridge. So you'll be able to loop right up again on Route 1. Another important thing to note is these improvements feed into and actually support the larger improvements proposed by Mass Highway Department for the widening of Route 1 from Copeland Circle to Route 99 in Saugus. That is a major, major improvement that is now in the preliminary design stage, and we're trying to push the state to move that and advance that project along. And we're hoping that this project, the casino project, and these improvements being undertaken at the Route 1, Route 16 intersection will be a catalyst to that larger improvement. And we're urging all the other communities, and I'm not sure, that are affected by the bottleneck at that Route 1 between 19 and Copeland Circle will put pressure on the state along with us to advance that project.
And I would assume, given the casino passes, and whether it's in Everett or Revere or East Boston, that if it's in this arena, that the success of that casino is going to be dependent upon improvements in those traffics, and then it's going to be incumbent upon the state to do that to help preserve some of the revenue that they'll be expecting from the casino. Yeah.
Well, from the developer's point of view, Ed, you don't want to invest $1 billion in a gaming development that no one can get to, right? So it's very, very important to us that we've got an easy way for people to visit, and whether that's on the local roads or by public transportation, by shared shuttle and van systems and things like that. The difference between a gaming development and some other type of development is if we were proposing to build a biotech facility in Billerica, the state would be saying, okay, how do we make this happen? We'll spend $25 million to build an off-ramp to help this. When it's gaming development, we have to spend the money. So that's why we're proposing $45 million of our own money. Now, that doesn't preclude the state from dealing with big regional issues like the widening of Route 1, okay? So clearly, our proposal is going to have a tiny little bit to do with the overall traffic on Route 1 and the Route 1 system. But any direct impacts from our proposal we have to address, which is why we're proposing the major fix along Route 1A and then some regional fixes like the one that Frank talked about at 1 and 16 to ease some of the congestion that exists now and that nobody's spending any money on, and that we're going to have some impact, so we're stepping to the plate to spend money and resources on that. We want to be part of a larger conversation about regional transportation improvements because that's an appropriate role for us. It's an appropriate role for the city, for East Boston, for Winthrop and Chelsea and our surrounding communities to address some of the longer term impacts.
Yeah. All right. Dan?
Yes, Ed, just to underscore some of the things that Frank said and Chip has also echoed, the 1 and 16 improvements are an important element. Presently, the traffic coming down Route 1 that wants to head east, a lot of it may jump off at Copeland Circle and come through the city, as Frank had described, in order to avoid the uncomfortable U-turn. By creating these connections so that someone can come down Route 1 southbound, get on Route 16 eastbound, that does take traffic off some of the other roadways. Additionally, by eliminating that U-turn or the demand for that U-turn, it's a safety improvement for that intersection as well. So it's got a safety component to it.
Take some of that traffic out of that Webster Avenue intersection as well. You don't have to wait there anymore. You don't have to get there. So it relieves some of that pressure.
Right. So, and just one other element is for the Route 16 westbound traffic, there will be that left turn signalized intersection to get to Route 1 North. However, the westbound through traffic at that intersection won't be required to stop. It's just a control for the left turn move. So you'll still have through westbound traffic at that intersection, though they may have to stop at the next light, bringing the Route 1 traffic out onto 16 East.
So yeah, westbound will be able to continue. Eastbound has to stop, but yeah. Correct. Okay. All right, looking at another major intersection within the city that would be impacted is the Harris Street and Route 16 intersection by the railroad bridge, as we all know it, that area there, which is pretty confusing as it exists today. What's going to happen there?
That intersection right now is very deficient, and the transportation improvement plan involves complete reconstruction of that intersection and installing new signals, upgrading the current signals, new signals that'll be, the timing of those signals will be set to optimal conditions. What will also be added is an extra, it'll be widened as you approach Route 6, come off Route 16 and start to approach the Bell Circle approach.
Yep.
That will be widened, and two lanes will be created for the right-hand turn coming onto the Parkway. Right now there's one lane. So to facilitate more capacity for traffic movements for that right-hand turn lane, there'll be an additional lane placed there. There are other alternatives being looked at for Harris Street. There's a possibility of dead-ending Harris Street to eliminate that movement, to create more timing for the other movements, making it Harris Street a one-way in a northbound direction and making it a one-way in the southbound directions. Those alternatives have to be looked at with the neighborhood. As we approach final design, we'll come to a decision how we're going to handle those improvements. But they all total into a complete improvement plan for that intersection. And one major thing that is included there that's missing now is pedestrian safety.
I was just going to ask you about the pedestrian crosswalks and so forth. Yes,
there will be
that's difficult.
Handicap accessible ramps put in, new sidewalks, and new defined crosswalks coming in both directions.
Great. Chip, do you want to add anything?
That's so. Some of these improvements, our role is pretty much to fund them, and then, as Frank said, it's up to the neighborhood, it's up to the city, and in conversations with DCR and Mass DOT on what the final plans are for some of these intersections. We've got a commitment to the city of Revere that will provide the funding for these, and we've been looking at them. I mean, clearly. You mentioned pedestrian and safety improvements. Right now, there are crosswalks at the Harris Street, Route 16, Winthrop Avenue intersection, but there's no signal that stops all the traffic so someone can cross the street.
I've crossed there a couple of times, I know exactly.
So there are some of those that, we're, as the developer and as part of the host community agreement, we're happy to put up the money and let the experts decide what to do.
And that's a valid point. Before I get to you, Dan, on this issue, the money, because again, it all comes down to what's part of the $126 million, the mitigation plan, and what else is in addition. All of this is in addition to what the mitigation plan includes,
this is above and beyond the upfront revenue commitment and the annual revenue commitment to the city of Revere. The transportation improvements are in addition to that.
Yeah. Okay, and that's an important point. Dan, did you have anything you wanted to add on the Harris Street? And
just an overarching comment. Frank and Suffolk Downs have worked together to identify throughout all of these intersections those type of pedestrian safety improvements that make it a more walkable environment. The other addition through most of these intersections is the addition of emergency signal preemption for the emergency response vehicles, so that as they're approaching an intersection, a transmitter in their vehicle hits a receiver on the signal equipment so that light will turn green so the traffic can move out of their way in order for the emergency response vehicles to get through. So safety is obviously one of the elements that has been carried through all of these improvements.
That's great.
Yeah, I should note that as Dan said, every intersection, all the new signals will be equipped with an Opticon system, will allow preemption of those lights for emergency apparatus.
So going on to the next section, kind of near and dear to my heart, in the Beachmont area, I see close to $1 million worth of streetscaping and work being done in the Dunley Square area. You want to talk a little bit about some of the designs and the plans there?
Yes, that also includes upgrade of the traffic signals for improved timing and phasing for optimal conditions, traffic conditions. Along with that, we're looking at some geometric improvements of the intersection to make traffic flow safer and channelized through the intersection a lot safer. Right now there are some dangerous weaves, especially coming off of Crescent Ave and trying to take a right and heading west onto Winthrop Avenue. That's going to be looked at closely. We're looking at an alternative of eliminating that right-hand turn on Crescent Avenue on the right-hand side of the island that separates Crescent Avenue to 2 lanes. Yep. Making one exit out of Crescent Avenue, so it's not that close to Donnelly Square, and you won't have to make that dangerous weave. Yeah. Again, that alternative will be looked at closely, and we'll work with the Beachmont Improvement Committee on that and come out with a design that suits everybody's needs. But we think that's the safest way to handle the traffic flow in that.
And that's a key thing. I mean, roughly, there's $1 million being allocated for that area, in terms of streetscaping and the work on the Dunley Square traffic flow. But there will be, beyond this, once the casino is approved, let's hope, once we get beyond that point, there will be a series of meetings, discussions, and design work with folks in the community, to finalize these plans, yeah?
Yes, especially in Donnelly Square, because it's a neighborhood intersection. There's a lot of activity that takes place there. It revolves around the Beachmont train station and the small commercial district that's there. It's a gateway to Beachmont. So the Beachmont Improvement Committee will be involved with us when we work out a new design plan for that.
Yeah, and as we keep saying, a gateway to Suffolk Downs, the casino as well, which it's so important to make it so good, not just for us, but for the casino as well.
Yeah, sure. So another major element of the Donnelly Square is pedestrian safety. As you know, a lot of pedestrians go to Beachmont train station, so it's a heavily traveled intersection by pedestrians. Right now, we're looking at permanent defined crosswalks with handicap access ramps, so people will be crossing that intersection at specific points and not all over the place. So that's an important element. Streetscape improvements, tree planting, improved lighting, that's all part of the plan. So we really hope to transform that square into something special.
Yeah. Sure. Anything to add?
That the whole, the bulk of the traffic will be coming into our facility off of Route 1A, but we want to be sure that we create 3 spectacular entrances to the facility. So one at 1A, one at the Suffolk Downs T Station, and then one at Winthrop Avenue as well. And it's important to remember too that Winthrop Avenue entrance to Suffolk Downs is also our connection to Revere Beach. It helps us connect. It'll help us connect to Revere Beach for people who want to use that as a recreational option as part of visiting our facility. It helps us connect to the City of Revere Commercial District, and it helps us connect on 16 West to Route 1 north and south. So we are looking at all of these access points to the property as how we can improve them to make sure that we provide the best connection.
Dan, anything to add to the Dunley Square?
Not in this conversation.
Okay, all right. The other major improvement project that will be set for transportation is North Shore Road Revere Beach Parkway intersection to Tomasello and all of that, which affects, of course, the Shirley Ave area. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, as Chip stated, that is one of the main gateways into the casino on the Revere side. The Winthrop Avenue driveway into Tomasello, I should say Revere Beach Parkway driveway into Tomasello, will undergo complete new traffic signals with the new timing and phasing. There will be improved pedestrian movements for that area also. Handicap access ramps, more defined crosswalks for pedestrian safety. You have a shopping center there, you're going to have a casino. You're going to have a lot of pedestrian traffic coming across that intersection. Also, which is included, is a designated right-hand turning lane coming into Tomasello Drive. If you're heading southbound, eastbound on Revere Beach Parkway, right after the Revere Police Station, there'll be a designated right-hand turn lane just for coming into the casino. And you'll have 2 additional lanes to be able to go for through traffic to go in through Beachmont, heading up through Winthrop and Revere Beach.
Some widening there as well?
And there's going to be some widening to create that extra lane.
And looking at that route, that North Shore Road route, I mean, because generally anybody coming from the Marblehead, Lynn, Swampscott area, coming down North Shore Road, they're likely to maybe come through Brown Circle, is it?
Butler Circle.
Butler Circle, and where the Wonderland used to be, and shoot right down across Shirley Ave down North Shore Road to the casino is, and I'm sure you've looked at those studies. What do you see the impact there?
Yeah, there'll be a small amount of traffic
think?
that probably comes in from
Because
the
that's
north.
one of the concerns people
If you're
bring
coming
up.
in from Salem and Swampscott, Lynn, Nahant, Marblehead, yeah, you're going to come down 1A. You can have an alternative to jump right on the Revere East Boulevard and continue that down to Ocean Avenue and come in that gateway through Elliott Circle. Or you can come down North Shore Road. Or you continue on to Bell Circle and take that route and come in.
So in the markings, there's things to, if you will, incentivize people to use other routes, if you will?
But I think it's important to note that that was maybe 1 or 2% of the visitation, from Nahant, Swampscott, Marblehead, that was assigned to that area of the roadways. It's just not wonderful communities and neighbors of ours, as we all know. But as we looked at the visitation by auto at the facility, it was just a very, very small percentage of traffic that comes through there.
Whatever there is, you're going to be doing some improvements there to help
but I'd
on
like
that.
to add that the timing and phasing of those traffic signals at that intersection is going to improve local traffic flow, especially for commuters coming out of, and residents coming out of Beachmont and heading up to Broadway.
It dawns on me that we're having this conversation about Revere, and there's a lot of local traffic benefits for Winthrop residents. Right?
Yes.
So on the East Boston side and the Revere side, if you live in Winthrop now, it's going to be a lot easier to get in and out. And so if there's anybody from Winthrop watching, I just wanted to point that out.
Maybe we can get them to come vote for it.
Yeah.
The next one I have was a $1.2 million roughly improvements at Bell Circle, Brown Circle, and the Revere Street intersection of Route 60. Let's talk about some of those.
Yeah, well, we put those intersections on the table. We looked at them very closely. Bell Circle, the real fix for Bell Circle is an astronomical number.
Yeah, I was just going to say, that's a huge...
which involves a grade separation. It's very costly and very disruptive to the entire city. So the existing conditions we have now, the geometry that's there, is going to stay that way. There's going to be some improvements to improve capacity getting through there. Obviously, the signals will be looked at for timing and phasing for optimal conditions. What will be, if you're heading north on Route 1A and coming into the circle, and you want to continue down VFW Parkway, you merge into one tight lane, which backs up traffic all the way up to Route 1.
Onto the Parkway, right, exactly.
An
Which
additional,
will affect your traffic, yeah.
So an additional lane will be created there to improve capacity, because that's a pretty heavily used movement. People heading down 1A and continue down VFW Parkway to North Shore Road and up through Lynn. So That's one capacity improvement. The other improvements are going to be aesthetic improvements in pedestrian safety improvements, new pavement markings to facilitate safe channelization of traffic through that circle. But what presently doesn't exist now is a safe way to cross the circle. So we're looking at creating a pedestrian crosswalk at the northern end of the circle. A lot of students from Revere High School cut across to Shirley Avenue. That's heavily traveled, so we want to create a safe route of access for them. If you look at the circle, we don't have an overhead, but there are 3 triangles that exist at each intersection. They're fairly large triangles, and they're just these medians are asphalt, weed-infested medians that are ugly. So the idea is to create nicely landscaped medians that are irrigated, similar to what we have at Brown Circle. We're working with the Revere Beautification Committee to landscape and irrigate the inner circle of Bell Circle where the 2 half moons are. Those will also be irrigated and landscaped. The trees will be trimmed, complete new landscaping, and so the attractiveness of that circle will certainly be an important part of this improvement plan, as well as pedestrian safety.
All right, and looking at Brown Circle.
Brown Circle, same thing. It's a hazardous situation right now, although there are no signals. Channelization improvements will be undertaken that will involve geometric changes to the Route 107 approach and Route 60 approach into the circle. The existing islands will be extended. New islands will be constructed to facilitate safe traffic flow in and around the circle. Right now it's a free-for-all, especially if you're coming from Broadway and entering the circle. There is no island to channel traffic. That will be constructed. So, and there is an element of pedestrian safety included also. There will be a crosswalk and curb ramp at the northern end, where in front of the Dunkin' Donuts.
And finally, the intersection with Revere Street, which is another major one, especially if you're coming off the beach and that area there. What are you doing there?
Yeah, that intersection, the signals will be looked at again for phased with Bell Circle for optimal traffic conditions. So new timing and phasing of those signals will be implemented. And again, pedestrian safety is important there. We have the Rumney Marsh Academy. We have Revere High School. We have a lot of residents that cross American Legion Highway, which is Route 60, down Revere Street. So new curb ramps, new crosswalks to facilitate pedestrian safety will be constructed at that location also.
Anything to add to any of those improvements?
Yeah, it's just that the opportunity that presents itself within this project as it gets approved is that as each intersection is reconsidered, we looked at North Shore Road and Tomasello Drive, the opportunity to upgrade signal equipment, to add pedestrian elements, whether it be pedestrian signal heads, pedestrian crosswalks where some might be missing. There'll be a new pedestrian refuge island at that right turn lane into Tomasello Drive that Frank had mentioned. A lot of elements that help to provide pedestrian safety, as well as increase vehicular capacity through improved channelization, upgraded striping, review signage, make sure that it's all clear and concise, conforming to the new requirements. And it's just a great opportunity for the city to take a look at their infrastructure.
Yeah, pedestrian safety in that area in particular, because there are so many people from the Shirley Ave, Beachmont areas that really kind of walk to that plaza that's currently there, and will continue to do as long as it's there. Yeah. So that's so important.
Yeah, I add one more thing I'd like to emphasize. That, obviously everybody knows Revere is dissected by a number of regional highways that separates the city. This is why that Route 16 connection is so important, to divert traffic around the city, which would benefit our traffic capacity. Again, all these intersections that we talked about, Bell Circle, intersection of Revere Street and Route 60, Brown Circle, Copeland Circle, will all benefit from that diversion, from that Route 1, Route 16 connection, which will now divert regional traffic around the city.
So in the end, to kind of wrap it up and summarize a little bit, all of these improvements are over and above what we're getting from the mitigation package. in addition to that. Secondly, going back to our conversation, to make sure I got it right, is most, if not all of these, will be done in the time frame during the construction of the casino, so that when the doors open, all of these should be completed. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we're working on permitting now. Okay. Now, there's as a developer, we've got a lot at risk, not knowing whether we get a license or not. Right? You know, we've got there's a couple more steps left in this process. We have ballot questions in East Boston and Revere on November 5th, and you know, we have strong support in both communities, but we want to urge people to remember to get out to vote, right? And to hopefully to support the project on November 5th. We have a final application due to the Gaming Commission in December. The Gaming Commission's not going to make a decision until April. We've been working for 5 years to be ready to go so that we can pull permits in a very short period of time after we get a license. If we do get one, right? If we earn that license, and to the point that we included a lot of these road and infrastructure improvements in our state filings already. So we're already in conversations with MIPA about the impacts of these, right? So it's not as if we're waiting to see what happens before we start the transportation improvements. We're in the permitting process for this now, with Mass DOT and others in these conversations, so that if and when the license is awarded in April, we're ready to go as quickly as possible.
That's a valid point, because those don't happen overnight.
Yeah, no, they don't. So you know, I mean, and you know, I'm always sensitive at people think, oh, you know, well, why are they doing all that? Well, we're doing it because we'd like to get open. We'd like to build the facility and be successful and be open quickly. And getting to market quickly is a big part of our plan. And you know, we've been working very hard for the last few years. And in conjunction with the city. I mean, I don't know the first time that Frank and I sat down and talked about traffic and transportation planning, but it has to be 3 or 4 years ago at this stage. So this has been an ongoing conversation.
And I know that in all the mitigation hearings that were held and all the discussions, I mean, traffic was the first thing that people would bring up. Yeah. Traffic. So yeah, I can understand.
It was our priority going into this. We have to deal with the traffic, number one. And we've all been on board. I can say this without batting an eye. Every improvement project that we proposed to Suffolk Downs and put on the table, they embraced it. Obviously, they want to see the most improved traffic conditions as they can exist. So for their casino, and so they've been a great partner with this improvement plan. Yep. And I can honestly say I've been city planner for over 30 years now, and what the city is going to see in terms of transportation improvements from this one project is going to override everything we try to accomplish in 30 years. And that's, a lot of these projects have been championed by a lot of the former mayors. We've worked hard in advancing these projects, and we've come close a lot of times, but this one casino project is going to put us over the top and allow us to implement a lot of these.
You said a key word, and just before we wrap up, I guess one area that we haven't talked about, and we've been talking about road traffic and transportation on the roads. Public transportation. I know you're doing some work in public transportation, but as it relates to Revere and impact on Revere, what's being done there?
I'll defer that to Chip.
So one of our advantages is that we are accessible by 2 MBTA stops. Right now, the Beachmont stop it's a little bit more of a challenge as a pedestrian commute, because you have to walk almost a mile. Right? I mean, it's a big walk into the facility. The Suffolk Downs T station. There's a reason it's called the Suffolk Downs T Station, right? It's right on the property virtually. And so we're in conversations with the MBTA about what we do to enhance visitation by T. We also, even with 6,000 surface parking spaces now, we're going to reduce some of the parking at the facility. We'll have a little over 5,500 in that range parking spaces, surface and garage, okay? But we're not going to have a lot of parking for employees, so we've got to get employees from Revere from East Boston, from the area, to and from the facility. So we're going to subsidize Charlie cards. We're going to subsidize T-passes for employees. We're going to have a local shuttle system for employees so that employees from the neighborhood can get picked up at designated points and dropped off. We want to discourage anybody from bringing their car that doesn't need to bring it. And we also are going to discourage employees from parking in the local neighborhoods. So one of the programs that we've talked about is like a scarlet letter for if you're an employee for your car, right? So that it's got a big signal on it so that if it's parked on Washburn Avenue or if it's parked over in the Beachmont neighborhood, then the city of Revere knows that this is somebody who's taking up a space that shouldn't be there and things like that. So we're working on a really aggressive transportation demand management program to ensure that you can walk to the facility, you can bike to the facility. We're going to create bike lanes in places where there aren't any now to connect to the property. You can get to the facility by public transportation, and that the last best option should be to get in your car and drive there.
Great. Okay. Dan, do you have anything to add to?
I'm going to just mention the bike traffic that Chip mentioned. All of these elements will include bike facilities to the extent possible, whether it be striping or signage to let people know, where they can bike and to make it a little bit clearer that there are bicycles sharing the road. The other neat element is in their conversations with the City of Boston, looking at the potential to post hubway bike stations at Suffolk Downs, so that folks can grab a bike and ride to an adjacent destination, be it to the beach or in town.
Yep.
Yeah.
They've got some neat plans for in-house bike parking, so employees can ride their bikes in and things like that. So it's just an all-around.
Great.
Good
I'd like to add one more thing. Obviously, rapid transit with Beachmont train station, Suffolk Downs train station, are right at the doorsteps of Suffolk Downs. But we're working with the MBTA and Suffolk Downs to have a bus stop at the casino for the wide system of bus traffic that comes in from Malden and North Revere and throughout the whole city, Lynn, to have a bus stop right at the casino. So that'll even broaden our public transportation arm out
Capabilities.
there.
Yeah. All right, great. Okay. Well, listen, thank you all very much. I really appreciate
All right,
the
pleasure,
time
Ed.
and the information. Dan. That does it for the transportation section of our roundtable discussions. Next up, we'll be talking about public safety with Fire Chief Doherty, Chief Caffarelli, and Paul Evans from Suffolk Downs. We'll catch you then. Take care.